Sanguinani Dumilan, good evening and welcome to episode 346 of the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Uzamantungwa Khumalo. It is the Wednesday edition of the Private Property Podcast. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the family. You've missed out on a whole host of incredible episodes, so do make sure that you go to our Facebook or YouTube page or wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Spotify, of course, or on the Apple podcast platform. Then catch up on the great episodes that you have already missed out on. And to all our regular viewers on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, welcome back. You know how we do it. Every single weekday, you and I have an appointment at 7 p.m. where I'm always in conversation with the property expert who helps us make better property decisions. Doesn't matter where you are in your property journey, we're certainly here to make it better, smoother, and empower you to make better decisions. And talking about empowering you to make better decisions, you can tune into a whole host of other shows right here across Private Property's social media platforms every weekday at 8 p.m. As it is a Wednesday, you can catch Esther Klassen on the First Time Home Buyers Show later on, which is always in conversation with people who've walked that first time home buying journey and have gone on to grow their property portfolios from strength to strength. And of course, every Tuesdays and Thursdays, Umbali Nwagwa brings you the farming podcast tackling all things agriculture. So if you want to certainly get your green fingers working and understanding the business side of agriculture, that is the show that you want to tune into. And every Mondays and Fridays, Chad brings us the Home Shoppers Show, where he takes us through exquisite properties that you can find on www.privateproperty.co.za. So do make sure to not miss that show every Mondays and Fridays. And of course, there's myself, Uzamantungwa Khumalo, every single weekday at 7 p.m. I'm on your screens and always learning from each other across our social media platforms. And I already see some of the love that we're getting. I want to see who is present and watching, whether you're watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, or of course on our Instagram page. Do show us some love down here below. This evening, we are talking about the surge in upmarket retirement housing. And I know that, whenever we talk about retirement housing, I always think, oh gosh, I'm so young. That's not a thing I have to think about. But the reality is we have family members who, we have to always consider, because sometimes we may have to make those plans for them. And of course, some of you, let me not say some of us, I'm still quite young. Some of you are getting older and also looking at different ways to potentially change your lifestyle the moment you are, of course, older. That's exactly what we're going to be looking at this evening. I already see some of the love. Vanessa Nell saying, hello, beautiful Zama. Ukamkhelo Masola saying, evening, fam. Varana Siddiqui also watching, saying, evening, fam. Vanessa Nell is also watching. And of course, a whole host of you on our Facebook page. Michelle Volmerans, Mohale, sending those green hearts on our Facebook page. So do keep the love coming. We absolutely love to see it. I want to find out from you at home. I mean, is a retirement home something that you would consider for yourself, or you would consider, for a loved one? And whether you have already, started looking at retirement housing options, and what have you found as you're doing your research? I mean, we've spoken about this topic before on the show when we're just covering the basics of what we need to know when it comes to retirement housing. Well, to help us get a better sense of this, demand in the more upmarket retirement housing, I'm joined this evening by Gus Van Der Spek, who's the CEO at View Property Developers and the owner of the upmarket retirement estate, Watham Estate. And I think also later on in the show, as many of you know, as we're running our competition, where you can stand a chance of walking away with 500 rands cash every single weekday right here on the Private Property Podcast. We are going to be announcing who the potential lucky winner is. We didn't get a winner yesterday. We didn't get a winner the day before. So we've got, I think it's now 2,000 rands that's in the money bag. And I hope that the winner that we're going to call is indeed watching and will be able to claim their prize. And of course, do keep the comments coming through. Have you ever considered, moving into a retirement home or even for your family? And have you started already having that conversation? I want to see those comments down here on our page. Gus, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Evening, Zama. Thank you very much for having me again.
Guys, I think before we even look at what we should be asking for and some of the trends that we've seen or that you've rather picked up when it comes to the demand for retirement housing in general, I think first perhaps paint a picture of us around the difference between, I'll say, the sort of classic or standard retirement housing offers versus the more upmarket ones. What are some of the distinguishing factors? Because I think with so many of us generally not being used to retirement housing as much, we probably don't quite know what we would expect on the higher end when we look at this offering.
Yeah, look, thank you. Good question, and I think the whole industry has changed a lot over the last sort of 10 years. We're looking a lot at the sort of lifestyle estate is what the product is at the moment that is very much in demand. It used to be old age homes when sort of my granny was in a place, and then it turned into retirement estates. And now we're looking at lifestyle living, and lifestyle living is really around having a bouquet of services that and healthcare being sort of the central one of those that differentiated from a regular sort of block of flats or development estate. It's got that sort of care portion of it, but people are demanding sort of or asking for a lot more than that nowadays, and that's really being provided for by developers as we look to differentiate ourselves from other products in the market. There is, as you say, a sort of a drive nowadays towards this sort of seniors living market where there's a lot of housing coming online in this sphere, and the look is really to, or the drive is really to provide services that people need in a centralized eat and have care and socialize with their friends and that sort of thing, all within the same area. So nowadays, sort of differentiators are shuttle services. There'll be a tennis court or something on the grounds, sort of high-end food, healthcare that's obviously provided as part of your package. Those are all things that are sort of seen as the standard, and then it depends. Different developments are offering different services. In our place, we've got a hotel now, so if you've got family and friends coming to stay, there's a hotel for them to stay. And we've got laundry. There's a whole range of new services that are being sort of provided. It's like living in a hotel, but not a hotel. It's a home, but you're getting a lot of the hospitality services that you would have got, that you would normally get in places like that.
I mean, I think one of the key things that are already just jumping out is that you're certainly going to be living a very soft life in your old age. And I can imagine a lot of people, you've worked really hard. By the time, the kids are gone, you probably have grandkids, and you also don't want to be a bother, right? Because I think one of the realities that sometimes kids can be spread out across the country or across the world. And so being able to have some of these services where you live certainly does become a very big perk. And so, Gus, then what would you say is what are some of trends that you're seeing when it comes to Welcome back to episode 346 of the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Uzamantungwa Khumalo. It seems the long weekend gremlins are already at it. That's what I'm going to blame it on. There, as of course, I got cut off. I think that the gremlins are excited. They're looking forward to the long weekend and want to stop our buzz. But of course, we're not going to do that. We're still going to be looking at the surge in upmarket retirement housing. My guest this evening is Gus Van Der Spek, who's the CEO of View Property Developers. And before that interruption, Gus, I was asking you around some of the trends that you've seen when it comes to retirement housing, and this is from sort of the standard offering that we have in the market right up to the high-end offerings.
Some of the trends are definitely more of a centralized collection of services. Not leaving the development. I think over this lockdown period and COVID has definitely focused people on living in these communities. I suppose it's always been about a community of people. I suppose that is really one of the key focal areas of a retirement development. As people get older, their worlds get a bit smaller, and people look for the companionship that these places provide. So, building on that, there's a lot of community organizations that come out of these places. My folks have just moved into one, and my mom's already joined the gardening club and the knitting club, and so those are all the sort of sideline things that aren't advertised in the brochures, but are definitely very much a part of these societies that come together in these kind of places. I always say to people, it's you're back to your student days, just with some more disposable income, because you're living in a collection of people together, where you see your friends every day, but you don't have the sort of hassle of having to study for exams. So I think it's a very social place, and that's definitely one of the things that are coming out of it. So the trends definitely focus around building on that. So we're seeing developments where there's a shuttle service, and when the flowers come out in Cape Town, then everyone jumps in the shuttle bus and go up to see the flowers. So those are the sort of things that are community-based projects and services that are coming out.
And of course, I want to find out from you at home whether you've considered retirement housing, retirement living, whether for yourself or for your parents. And I think, what are some of the things that that are going through your mind as you're making these considerations, especially if you're planning on taking up the offer for your parents? I think many of us are still very young and don't quite have to think about it for ourselves, but we do have loved ones who would potentially, benefit from, living in a retirement estate, really, because as Gus has pointed out, it is a whole experience. It's a lifestyle offering, and there's so many different ways that the loved one would be almost reinventing themselves, really, in those particular communities. I see here Palisa on our Facebook page, Palisa Selane saying, I rather take care of my mom. Kazi Maubet saying that they would, and that is that they would, opt for retirement living. Kazi also said that they'd probably consider it for investment opportunities, so not just for living there yourself. I saw Martha Shingange, one of our top 10 gang members, and of course who regularly stands in when I'm unavailable, saying that 50, it seems like retirement is the new 50. So there are different kinds of offerings that you can look forward to even in that space. And I think it speaks to what Gus was saying, that it's almost like varsity life, except you don't have the stress of exams and having to meet assignment deadlines, which of course we all know how angst-inducing those tend to be. I want us to go for a quick break. Do keep the comments and certainly questions coming through. I want us to see who is going to walk away with this 2,000 rands. I see a lot of you commenting about how much money is now in the money bag. I hope that whoever walks away with the money is indeed watching and can walk away with the 2,000 rands. Let's see who this evening's lucky winner is. And the lucky winner this evening on our competition that we're running on our Facebook page is Ufulufelo Michelle Hope. Fulufelo Michelle Hope, I do hope that you're watching. 2,000 rands is up for grabs, and of course in the money bag. So if you're watching, drop us a text down here below so you can claim that 2,000 rands. I know a lot of people in the comment section was just saying this is so much money that they would absolutely love it. And if anything, it would be a great kickstart to the upcoming long weekend. If we have a rollover by the time we come to the long weekend, we'll see how much money we have in the money bag. Of course, we are talking all things upmarket retirement housing this evening, the offering, what you should be looking for, and some of the mistakes to avoid. And that's exactly what we're going to be exploring now. I'm in conversation with Gus Van Der Spek, who's the CEO at PrivateProperty Developers. Now, Gus, when we look at particularly the upmarket retirement housing offerings, what are some of the mistakes as consumers should we avoid making? And especially as we are planning, whether it's for ourselves or for our loved ones, because I think this is one of those things that more often than not, you probably only do once, right? It's not like buying a house where you might probably buy it a couple of times and change it. This isn't quite one of those instances. So what are some mistakes should we be careful of and certainly try avoiding?
Sure. So obviously some of the mostly monetary things are the ones that jump out. when you're comparing levies between different developments. So, we see a lot of clients that are shopping around. They're looking at a few different places. I always say compare apples with apples. So, really look down into the levy and see what services you're getting and what it replaces, the cost that it replaces in your life right now. So if you're living in a house and, there's a ADT or whatever, if you move in somewhere with centralized security, you're going to replace that cost with a different cost, and then look across all of the different offerings that you have, put it in a sort of a spreadsheet or something, and build out that cost to make sure that you understand exactly what each development is offering you, because often there are things that are hidden away, not purposefully, but are excluded from certain developments, which you will then have to pay in for later. So you want to really find out what the worst case scenario is in terms of what it's going to cost you to live somewhere. Retirement developments generally are cheaper to live in because there's a collection of people paying for a set of services than living in a house and getting those same services. But really try and understand the levy. If someone says, look, my levy is 3,000 Rand a month, and the other person says my levy is 7,000 Rand a month, generally it's not because one person's just cheaper than the other. It's because there's a different set of services that you get for that levy. And then the other thing is, I would say, we deal a lot with people that are qualifying age is from 60. Some places are 65, and they 60-year-old is a young person still with a long time left to live, and so people consider the change now and what they need in their life right now. But when you are making this move, project that 10 years ahead, and then project another 10 years ahead from that, and then project, so you need to make a decision that's a 20-year decision if you're 60, or if you're 70, a 10-year decision, or depending on how long you sort of you're not planning on living, but like people, it is a longer sort of decision that you need to make. So don't make it for today, make it for 10 years from now. So I would say that's very much something you need to consider. Things like living near your kids becomes more and more important the older you get. And so the ideal of retiring to a beachside town might seem like a great idea when you're 60, but when you're 80 and driving and longer distances becomes a problem, then all of a sudden that decision wasn't the best decision. So I think it definitely should be something you consider the longer sort of future when making that call.
And I see that our winner, Fulufelo Michelle Hope, is indeed on the live watching. She's dropped messages down here below claiming that 2,000 rands. Congratulations to you, Fulufelo, for, of course, firstly entering the competition and being and watching us live so that you're able to claim the money. And if you want to be just like Ufulufelo, all you have to do is to comment on the pinned post on our Facebook page, and you stand a chance of walking away with the 500 rands cash that we give away every single evening right here on the show live. And so do make sure that you keep commenting, and your name might be one of the names that gets called up. And just like Ufulufelo, all you have to do is to drop us a text down here below to claim your money. And Fulufelo, remember to slide into our DMs so we get your details so that we can make sure that you get that cash. Gus, as you were speaking, I think one of the things that came up for me was then, what are some of the best ways to prepare, right? So, I mean, we're now fairly clear on some of the mistakes we want to avoid. The big thing being get a good sense of finances. And I think that's one of the things that, of course, even at that age, you don't want to get wrong, especially because you would have worked all your life and you now want to not have practices, so to speak, or some of the things that you should do to best prepare, before you obviously either buy into the retirement home, at which age should we start, preparing as we make that consideration of moving from whatever kind of home or house, rather, or property that you're living in into?
Yeah, Zama, I think the last time I was on the show with you, we were speaking about, being financially prepared. And that really is such an important concept to grasp when you're younger, of saving for your retirement. I think working into your 70s is not everyone's plan, but some people have to do it because they haven't prepared sufficiently. So start early. I think that's probably the best advice I would give my 18, 19-year-old self, or whenever I was 19, when I started working my first job, is take 10% of your salary and put it in a savings account. It's amazing what you can do with time, and time really creates money. It's people save themselves rich. It's a real concept. I mean, I've seen people that I know that haven't earned huge salaries, but they've been big savers, and they've secured their futures at 65. They can safely retire and live their life on their own terms at that point. So, yeah, I think. The other thing to consider is that we're all living longer nowadays. So, if you prepared to your timeline is to 80, you might live to 90, you might live to 95. So these are all things that are difficult to sort of conceptualize when you're younger. But I think you can give yourself a big head start by starting early, and putting some money away, and don't touch it. Put it somewhere you can't touch it, and then just keep on putting it there, and it's amazing what will build up. And it's like one of those things, you start off small, and it doesn't seem like much, but when you look back in a couple of years, there's a significant pot of money, and then it becomes a challenge to build it up even more. And what I've seen with my mother is a big saver, and she now doesn't want to ever touch that pot of money. So she's now very reluctant to start looking at it. But I think she's been a very good sort of example for me to follow in that sense of just squirreling money away every month. It becomes a sizable investment at some point. But so that's one of them. Some of the other things you can do in terms of retirement. There's been a scarcity of retirement developments across all fields. From the sort of entry level through the mid range to the higher end. There's been this sort of lack of sufficient units. So you always hear about these waiting lists to get into retirement developments. And my sort of advice would be, if you are living in an area, find your local retirement developments and put your name down. There's nothing, there's no harm in it. There's no cost in it. Just put your name on the list. You're generally going to get an update every now and then of what units are available. And when the time comes, then you'll be ready for it. You know what you're looking at. You've educated yourself in the offering. You've watched the prices over time, so you know what you can afford. So start looking at these things earlier rather than later. It's not all dreary. It doesn't have to be considered the last move. It really is just preparing yourself for a certain phase in your life where you need a collection of services that these developments provide.
Gus, before I let you go, I mean, I saw the great news that Avenue property developers are going to be recognized at a very prestigious awards, the Arabia Property 2021 Awards. Tell us a little bit about the awards, and of course what you are going to be recognized for next month. I know that the event will be taking place virtually next month. Tell us a little bit about that. It's always great seeing South African companies and projects getting recognition in award ceremonies that aren't just local, but of course have international people also coming in at international projects. So can you tell us a little bit about the work that you're going to be recognized for, and a little bit about the awards?
Yeah, sure. We were contacted during the course of last year by the International Property Awards, who had come across our development and thought we had a chance of doing okay in the award ceremony. We put together a sort of an entry pack, and we heard the good news the other day that we'd placed in the Africa and Arabia region, which is the start of the competition. So we've won a prize there for a residential development of the year, and also our website won an award there as well. And basically, what happens now is we go into the next round, which groups all the regions together, and there's sort of a world number one that'll come out of it. So that all happens on the 7th of October. It's a virtual. They used to have the big award ceremony in Dubai, but obviously with COVID and that sort of thing, that's all being held online now. But yeah, it really, it's been sort of three and a half years of a very high intensity of development and keeping this thing on track and learning about the business. And you're not just developing a housing project, there's a human element to it, where you've got these social elements and food and cleaning, and so you're sort of building a hotel and a hospital and a development all in one. So to be recognized for that is definitely makes it all sort of worth it at the end of the day, all the hard work that we've put in. And I'm just happy for my team who have,
and I think if anything, Gus, all the best for...
Sorry, I missed you there.
Certainly congratulations firstly to you and your team, and
thank you very much, Summer.
To the 7th. Yeah, and looking forward to the 7th to see how you fare with with the rest of the international community.
Thank you very much.
In the awards. We're going to leave it there this evening on the Private Property Podcast with myself, Uzamantungwa Khumalo. Gus, thank you so much for joining us on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Summer. Always good to chat.
And that is Gus Van Der Spek, who's the CEO of View Property Developers, wrapping up the Wednesday edition of the Private Property Podcast with myself, Uzamantungwa Khumalo. Congratulations yet again to Ufulufelo Michelle Hope for walking away with that 2,000 rands. We're back to 500 rands in the money bag tomorrow. I'm very excited to see who's going to win tomorrow. I do hope that they're going to be watching and to claim their prize. Remember, if you want to participate, comment in the post that is pinned on our Facebook page to stand a chance of walking away with the cash prize. That's it from myself. I'll be back on your screens tomorrow. We've got a recess at school, so I'm certainly able to be on the show on a Thursday. So I'll be on the screens tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. And of course, it is a Wednesday, so you can catch the First Time Home Buyer Show with St. Clausen at 8 p.m. Until then, hoping you're staying home and staying safe.